Welcome or welcome back to TSC Talks, the podcast inspired by the condition known as tuberous sclerosis complex. We are a podcast where we talk about all things special needs, cannabis industry, cannabinoid medicine, alt medicine, and any kind of off the track, off the beaten, off the grid marginalization and oppression within the systems of care upon which we must depend. That is our podcast. And today, my guest is Mark Worcester. He is also known as Nurse Mark. He started out his career, so to speak, by dropping out of high school to join the Marine Corps, which is why I decided to play the U.S. Marching Marine Corps Band in the intro. I'm going to turn it off now so you can hear me. Yeah, so really enjoyed meeting Mark, hearing more about his life, his entrepreneur business, he's had a lot of experiences. We don't really get too into depth into his past experiences. We talk a little bit about what he sees as concerning issues in the industry today, just rather have an open-ended chat. And then we are joined by Sherri Tutkus, who is also Mark's business partner in the expanding Green Nurse platform, which you'll hear a little more about. So she joins the podcast. But back to Mark. He wrote a book called Absolutely Fucking Amazing, and it's a great book. I read it, and I think I talked a little bit about it in the last podcast. He talks about how to change the way you think. How do you go from shit happens to shit happens, and I'm absolutely okay with that. Something I think we all need a little more of in this time and our country and our world. So read the book. It's an easy read, and he hits all the key important parts of being a healthy, integrated, happy human being, how we're wired to interact with the world, events at an early age, determine how we react to situations in life, becoming aware of your thoughts, food we eat, and the power of movement in maintaining joy and happiness. And then stick around. Well, he's not going to talk that much about the book, but we do talk a lot about other things that are important to Mark and to myself right now in the world in the cannabis industry. So I appreciate these guys coming on and indulging me in, like I said, a more open-ended chat, both with Mark and with Sherri. About 28 minutes in, she joins us. So if you really prefer to skip past Mark, which you probably shouldn't, I really don't recommend it. But if you want to hit like 28 minutes, and then you get both of us having a fun, but also a little bit pointed conversation and hearing more about what the green nurses are doing. You know, Mark is a male and he's a nurse, and I thought that was fairly significant. One of the few kind of bilking stereotypes and stepping right into it, embracing it fully. And I just enjoyed these guys. And as I always, looking forward to hearing more from Mark. So I'm going to really stop talking. Coming up on the podcast, let's see. I got OP Innovates, which we're going to slip in there. They are an up-and-coming cannabinoid formulation company. I'm not going to say much more about them, but they've got an interesting team, and they are really operating at a high level with a lot of intense understanding of the science of cannabinoid medicine and the hemp plant and the industry in general. So look forward to that coming up. And I'm interviewing a psychic on Friday, so that will be part of our Alt Med series. Let's see what else is coming up. We're doing a TSC and COVID convo on hopefully September 19th or 26th. Stay tuned for more on that. That is spearheaded by Daniel Price, who's a volunteer with TSC Talks. He came to me with the idea of talking about how it's going for people that either are affected by or live with someone affected by TSC, the restrictions with going to the hospital or seeing your doctors, and travel restrictions, all these things that people that have these chronic life-threatening conditions have relied upon for so many years, and everything's changing, and how the heck do we get by? So great idea from Daniel. We're putting the pieces together on that. We're going to have about 8 or 9 people on the call, so stay tuned for more on that. And I think that's it. And yeah, thanks again, Mark and Sherri. Take it away. Hello.
Well, hello there.
How are you?
I'm fabulous. And you?
Not bad. Not bad. I am absolutely fucking amazing.
You are that. That is for damn sure.
I read your book.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading it.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was, it was great. It was a great read.
Oh,
You're
thanks. It's
perfect.
really easy. And you know what? It was a good first book. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you introduce like the most important, in my opinion, things for life,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was really glad I read it before I talked to you. And I wish I had read it before I wrote my questions, but that's okay.
Well, listen, we'll do what it will be what it is, won't
All right.
it?
We'll go with the flow. Mark Worcester, Nurse Mark, thank you so much for being on TSC Talks, the podcast, to discuss your experience being a green nurse and your life experience. I know you've had just a ton of different experiences, from across the spectrum of life, of what can
Just
happen
everything.
to people.
Yeah.
So I read your book.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here, Jill. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, thanks for being on. I'm getting back into my podcasting mode here. I haven't done one in a while, so I'm like, Anyways, share with me a little bit about, just give me a little bio. What are you doing now? Where have you been? And we'll go from there.
Oh, as you said, I've had a lot of different experiences. A friend of mine years ago said, hey, you know what, Mark, life is just a set of experiences. And I have to tell you, that has been what has happened to me. I have had so many different varying experiences because I've been open to it. So I'm an entrepreneur. I had a technology consulting company for 30 years that I started in 1987, and I sold at the end of 2017.
Wow.
I had gone to nursing school in 2012. I graduated with my associates in 2014. And really did it nights and weekends running the last company, and didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just knew I wanted to be in healthcare. And my whole rationale for doing it was I wanted to create a life that was more meaningful to me. Like I made, my last company, I made plenty of money. I didn't have to work hard. Somebody from the outside looking in would say that I was crazy to give that up. I thought that this field, right?
I was like, well, I get it completely, because my life's been a complete experience, a set of experiences. So I can relate in that way. But I've never had that kind of financial success. So to me, that's having had that and then deciding to kind of switch. That's a lot, Mark. Yeah.
It's a lot. And there was a lot to that, Jill, where I sold my company to my partner, who was also my brother. So he's my younger brother. He's my partner for 30 years. I sold my stake in the business to him at the end of 2017. And I met this amazing entrepreneur from Brooklyn, New York. And she had a CBD company.
Okay.
And my journey is I smoked a lot of cannabis when I was an adolescent.
Yeah.
And then I went in the Marine Corps when I was 17. And that ended my cannabis use until 2018.
Wow.
So I was cannabis agnostic. I didn't care if you used it, Jill. I just didn't use it. I was fine with anybody who did it because I'd had that prior experience. I knew that it wasn't this,
evil thing,
evil, horrible drug that it was, it's just so silly. And everybody knows, really.
Right.
And so I started to dive into her business and understand cannabis from a medical standpoint because, I had a nursing degree and I had no idea that there was such a thing as a cannabis nurse at all. And as I dove more into the science behind it, more fascinated I became with how across the board this plant has such a powerful positive effect for human beings.
It really does.
So I dove in headlong, as I do with everything that I do. And oh my gosh, so now I'm in this amazing life. I finished my bachelor's in nursing in 2018. I'm in a master's in medical cannabis science and therapeutics program at University of Maryland. I mean, and I've traveled the world, literally traveled the world attending medical cannabis conferences.
Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I never expected to be in the cannabis industry. I, like you, I did not, I never even really tried cannabis till I was in my 40s and, had the freakouts, had the major freakouts and bad trips and kind of funny because that kind of led me back. Yeah. It led me back.
That would be my experience.
Really?
That would be my experience too. Yeah.
The bad yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That provoking of anxiety. It's just, it's too much THC all at once. So, for instance, I don't smoke. It's just not something that I do because that just is too much THC for me personally, my way my body's wired. Other people I know smoke daily and they're just right as rain and, perfect. But for me, that's not the case. So I am always an edible person.
Yeah, I read that in your book, and that's interesting. And when I first started learning about the medical or experiencing them and reading, I was like, oh my gosh, so, and then having the negative experiences with too much tea, the other pharmaceuticals I was on. But anyways, yes, really things can happen.
That's my business partner talks about pharmaceutical trauma.
Oh yeah, yes.
People experience that, right? Sherri talks about
I think back and I was like, oh my gosh, I overdosed on marijuana, when really I'm on like 5 different other medicines. Nobody's looking at like, that's the bad thing though. That's what we're going to call out is the marijuana because we're programmed to do that. Right? That's the information we've been given. And that's sort of the frame of reference that we come from. Yep.
And I talk about, back in the 1500s, the world was flat and everybody believed the world was flat. Right. And there was so much evidence for a flat world. And then Magellan came around the other side and all of a sudden people said, well, really? And I can imagine that it took a while, years and years and years for that flat mentality to go away, which is really what it's going to take for this stigma around the cannabis plant. Anybody who has, any common sense and ability to actually look at data and studies and understand all of that information that's out there, and there is a ton.
Yes.
They can't refute that it is a positive, beneficial plant. They just can't.
Not anymore.
So, no, they can't anymore.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I think that's hard when you're way out in front of the learning curve and you're waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. And you're seeing the results and you're experiencing them personally, and you can't you still can't get past
and play in their own mind.
Right. And it's human nature in a lot of ways. We're afraid of,
Absolutely.
what we don't know. And
it is human nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that frame of reference is hard to change. It really is.
Yep. It sure is.
But it can be done. I'm a living example of it. I'm a huge advocate, and I was agnostic before and I didn't use it. Now, now it's this hugely positive influence in my life and in the lives of so many other people.
Yeah. And that leads me kind of to where I wanted to take you a little bit in the discussion is formative experiences. I guess it seems like you're someone that has come into this industry and a lot of things have snapped into place in terms of connecting the dots. So what in your, as you were growing up or going through your, any part of your life, what stands out to you as times you were kind of getting the message, or experiences that you think back and think, oh yeah, well that kind of prepared me for this experience. You can think of anything like that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I had so many experiences.
So many.
Yeah, I think that, the first really formative experience that I had was going into the Marine Corps at the age of 17. I had my parents sign me in. I quit high school and, against the advice of my...
You quit high school. See, I didn't pick up that detail. Wow. That's big.
I quit high school in my senior year with a few months to go and signed in and went in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
And honestly, Jill, it was because I really didn't know what I was going to do when I got out of school. And I was so fearful of, oh my gosh, a couple of months, I'm going to have to figure this out.
Yep.
That I just jumped the gun and said, you know what, I'm just going to go and
yep. Your decisions are made for you then.
And it was hands down the best thing I could have done. I mean, that has really formed a lot of who I am in regard to having persistence.
Really,
sticking with something and very much being a team player. So that's very much part of who I am is this ability to bring people together and make a cohesive team that can actually achieve something.
Wow.
And that all stems from my Marine Corps experience, most definitely.
That's interesting. Yeah, I shared with you my brother and his family is very involved, and it's been tough with the cannabis issues.
It is.
It's
it
tough.
is.
So
yeah, I had a gentleman on my podcast earlier this week who's a nurse, longtime 30-year nurse, and who was a member of the U.S. Armed Forces, and he was recently is in the process of being honorably discharged forcibly by the military because he used CBD.
oh,
He tested hot, which, if you have
over
0.3% of THC is legal in this CBD products, well, that could pop a test. So it did in his case, and there's a zero tolerance policy. And for me, that's just, it's such a shame that they're going to lose a
such a
30-year
shame.
veteran who is a stellar record in every other case, and it's because he utilized that CBD for anxiety and pain. And
yeah, it's really putting people in a very, very, very uncomfortable position, and it's just a lot of cognitive dissonance.
I've been talking about it a lot lately, about the fact that I really, really believe that the people that need CBD and cannabis products the most are the ones who are prohibited from using it. Everybody in the healthcare space, everybody in law enforcement, everybody in the military. These are the people that have these experiences, right? That in their work life that are pretty toxic and will definitely cause PTSD, PTS symptoms. And it could be positive for them to have the access to the plant, but no,
I know
there's a zero tolerance.
Yeah, it's not like no
and
gray area.
And still 22 veterans a day commit suicide.
Yeah,
as a direct result of the mental illness that is caused by their participating in the military. Feel like I just need to talk about it everywhere I go, so that it's out in the space of the conversation. I know it's tough to talk about because it's so frustrating,
especially having been in the military.
Good it can be, right?
Yeah, we know. Yeah, it's like getting to the other side of it and just really understanding the science and not being afraid of it. And
it's the science.
Yep. And like looking at people that and thinking, oh man, I just really think that they could be helped by cannabis. And again, not being able to make headway because of their own legal status or their own, brainwashing.
There are jobs that I can apply for in the healthcare space as a nurse. There are jobs that I can't apply for because there will be a drug test, and I use CBD with THC, the legal amount in it, and I'll probably pop positive. And then what are they going to do? Well, then they'll make a decision whether they're going to contact the board of nursing in the state that I'm in.
Wow.
Right. So it could be this cascade. So I know that you some of the questions you may have about, what kind of things have you experienced in the workplace? Those are the kinds of things.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And it's an issue. So anyone who's a cannabis nurse is foregoing a lot of opportunity within their chosen career because they are committing to this plan. And that's what I think is fascinating about cannabis as a medicine. It's a passion for everybody who's involved in it.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah.
It has to be, because you give things up in your life, opportunity, in order to be a part of this movement.
And it almost feels risky because I went through the addiction treatment program twice, and, cannabis is not, this was a few years back. And, grateful for that program, those programs. But as I got along and learned more about, realizing that the pharmaceuticals weren't working, and finding cannabis, it's like you really have to I felt like I had to abandon the community that I'd reached out to for support.
You do.
I'd left, I got a divorce. I moved out. I mean, my life was in the shitter, and I reached out to this recovery community, and then, you're helping yourself, and you lose those connections,
you lose those connections. You really do.
Yeah.
You really do. I've seen it happen. I have a friend, as most people have people in their lives that have had issues with opiates and then moved on to heroin, right?
Yep.
Because the opiates become too expensive to buy on the street. And these are, functional, members of society that end up in this position, right? Over and over of chronic pain, and be kicked to the street to die like a dog because he was using cannabis somewhere else.
And that's, I think that's,
my gosh. Oh, I just get so fired up.
Well, I do too. I could probably rant on this for the entire hour easily.
I know.
Especially when I find someone that like-minded.
Absolutely.
Because it's a passion and you're willing to give things up. And sometimes that looks to people from the outside like, I guess I was going to say, you look like a dirty addict. Oh my God, you're in the cannabis industry.
I mean, people
that's
just
all
don't.
you care about, and that's not really true. It's that I've learned so much that I can't turn back. I can't ignore what I've learned.
No, you know what? It's like the cucumber and the pickle. You're a pickle now. Sorry. That's you. You're not going back to the cucumber.
Right.
No matter how hard you try, you can't put it back in the box.
Right. That's a saying in the 12-step program that you're an alcoholic. You're always an alcoholic. And that just bugged me so much because I feel like there's so much that they're not looking at with trauma and, and we're holding on to these labels that just end up being
labels.
Yeah. The labels. And it
is the labels. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to what would be your advice to your 20 to 30-year-old self now? I know you probably don't really live with a lot of regrets. I get the feeling.
I don't.
You can't.
And it's funny. I just have cultivated this ability to really live in the moment. Like I am open to the experience that is happening, like you and I right now having this discussion.
Yep.
It's where I am. So I've done 15 years.
You were. Oh, okay.
I was. And again, I don't do anything.
Sorry to make you share that.
You know what? It was a really fascinating story. I was newly married. I had 2 young daughters at home. I was young, early 20s. I was still out partying with the guys, being that Marine.
Oh yeah. That's huge.
And I would find myself in the bar room and I'd not at home and it would really bother me. And I just got so tired of saying, I'll be home and not being home. Yep. And I knew a friend who was a real alcoholic and, would park her car on top of the wood pile from time to time. And God bless her. She was a lovely, lovely person.
Oh boy.
But I saw she had been in AA for 5 years and her life was just amazing. So I said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. Yep. And I went in and I never hold back. I said, okay, I buy it. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And,
me too.
I did all of that work, that 12-step work.
Did you?
And
yep, me too.
And so for people who haven't done that kind of work, it is really just an introspective dive into your past. And so you really learn how to end your ties to the past, the negative ties, and move on from there and live in the moment, right? It's 24 hours. It
really is. It really is. I think
so that's where I really cultivated the beginnings of being able to just be in the day. So if I had to give my 20 or 30-year-old self some advice, I would say start saving your money a little sooner, kid.
I probably could say that to myself too.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That would be a piece of advice, a little bit at a time over a long stretch is makes for a nice retirement.
I could never quite get that. I'm very all or nothing.
But I've had so much fun, Jill.
Yes. And that kind of leads to, you touched on some of this, the stigmas, misperceptions. I mean, you went into you're in a field that's traditionally, when I think of nurses, I think of women. And you also,
male nurses are only 7% of the population. Mm-hmm. We're still a very, very small part of the group. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And especially, I would say, in the cannabis side of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were making that decision to kind of change your whole life and giving up this business and career, and go into nursing, I mean, how was that for you? Well, for you, but also for, people in your circles. I mean,
I was still running the other company while I went to nursing school nights and weekends.
Yep.
And it really caused a lot of issues with the employees because they saw me going to school for something completely unrelated to the company I was running. So they get a little uneasy. I actually had longtime employees leave.
Wow.
And they ended up coming back a year or two later when they found out I didn't just leave the company, right?
Yep.
Someone who is a lifelong learner, who continually looks at new things and tries to, have new experiences. I think it's a little unsettling for people because they like to
have a threat.
Yeah.
We get comfortable.
They like to just have this nice, easy life where not much changes and everything's good and the bills are paid. Me, I like to just throw stuff into chaos and see what happens.
Yeah, it's so great to talk to you because I'm very much
Yeah.
the same way. Yeah, I
Isn't it
feel
a
like
fun
we're
life
never
though?
done. It's a fun life.
We're
It
never
is.
done.
We're never done. There's always, I hate that idea that like science is fixed or these things are fixed, these ways we've done things in society.
I say that to people in the healthcare space all the time. I say, hey, listen, you think you know what's going on, but the human body is so complex. Let me tell you, 100 years from now, people are going to be studying what we are doing today and say, oh, those stupid son of a bitches, what were they thinking? Don't they know that you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z? Oh, right? Like we do with physicians who did bloodletting back in the day.
Right.
You know, you're sick, take a pint off. Well, here's the funny thing. Bloodletting is still, used as a treatment. I happen to have high iron. It's common for people of Northern European descent.
Okay.
And so the treatment for high iron is every month they go in and they draw a pint of blood off.
Really?
And my body makes a new pint that doesn't have any iron in it.
Interesting.
Right? So after 6 months of bloodletting, which is what they did at, 1800s, it's still valid, right? So I guess some of the stuff we'll do will be valid 100 years from now. But most of it will be like, yeah, probably not.
Well, I think that, and I want to make sure I hit on a few more things before Sherri comes in, but just the idea that, so anyone interested in becoming so when you're becoming a green nurse, like what would you say to them? Or some people are watching.
Community. Okay. There are a lot of great communities out there. There's CNNC, the ACNA, American Cannabis Nurses Association. There's the Green Nurse, which a community which Sherri and I are putting together, and we'll talk about later.
Yep.
A community of like-minded people that you can share information with. I think that was one of the things that I did that made a very big difference in my life, especially in my business life, was really buy into this mastermind group type thing. Be around people who are smarter. If you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
So you got to find another room with people who are smarter than you and learn from them, right? So this peer-to-peer interaction, I'm still part of an entrepreneurs peer network, entrepreneurs organization. And, I have this group of entrepreneurs I meet with every month, the same ones, same 6 people from around the world. And we share our experiences in life, in business, everything. And there's so much power in that. So if you're going to become a green nurse, you need to be in a community. You need to pick one or all. And, there's also the Association of Cannabis Specialists as well. And that's more of, each one has its little nuances. That one happens to be more physician sort of leaning, but I'm a member of that one too, because I get great information on our monthly calls with the physician group, right? Because they have much more knowledge of the human condition than I do in many cases. So it's good for me to be interacting with all these different people. So I would say that's a key thing.
Right. Yeah. And I have Sherri waiting, and I feel like I didn't get through as much with you as I wanted to, but I think that's fine because we were going with the flow here. But I did want to say that, especially in cannabis nursing, where, going from traditional nursing to cannabis nursing, you're kind of got those two different, like traditional medicine and Western medicine and more alternative. And you need those holistic people to bounce ideas off.
You do. You have to. There are people who have been in this for 5, 6, 10 years or more, who have such valuable experiences to share in there, and I have found in this community, they are willing to share their experiences.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, very true. People seem to have come here from that. Now, I don't want to say desperation, but a lot of transformative experiences that brought people into the industry. Most
of them. The cannabis nurses that I meet, most of them have a backstory of some debilitating issue that they had in their lives, and they were introduced to cannabis skeptically because all of our nurses are trained to be evidence-based practice only, right?
Right.
So we're very skeptical by nature, which is the way it should be. And so they have a personal experience first, and then they become passionate about cannabis as a medicine.
It almost has to strike home in order for you to make that big of a leap.
It really does.
Yeah.
To be able to overcome that stigma, right?
Yeah. Yep.
To
Absolutely.
be able to overcome that, you have to have had a personal experience that just slaps that stigma out of the way.
Right. Or
Say,
you
"Oh
were
my
a hippie
gosh."
right straight through. You
Yeah.
were a hippie when it started and you're still a hippie. And there's some of those people out there and they are
There
amazing. They are
And
amazing.
you know what? And guess what? They have a lot of knowledge
Yeah, they
too.
do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know. It's funny though, because
You can't discount anybody.
You can't. And I'm gonna bring in your business partner, Sherri, here.
Oh, my business partner. Oh, still connected.
Hi. This is just a filler. Don't mind me here. Up next is Sherri Tutkis. She's coming on to talk to us. So wanted to just note that this is the break in the podcast. So if you want to go get something to drink, go to the bathroom, have a snack, now is the time. And take it away, Sherri. And Mark. And me.
There she is.
You got
Hi.
Hi.
Hi,
Thank you
Sherri.
so much for joining us.
Hello, everybody. How is it going? Hi, Nurse Mark.
Hi, Sherri, the green nurse. What's going on?
Yay, we're celebrating.
We are celebrating.
What are you guys celebrating? Are you celebrating life? Wait, you got engaged?
Got married.
I got married yesterday.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And I was there to witness the celebration and to participate and to take photos and to record.
It wouldn't have been the same if you had not been there. It was
beautiful love story, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Spirituality is literally the basis for cannabis care and how our spirits were connected.
Yeah.
And Mark's spirit connected with Jamie's spirit. She's another green nurse. Plant does magic. I mean, just think about the magic of how this plant was able to bring two people together during COVID.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh my god.
So who is the bride? You said
Jamie.
Yep.
Jamie Rollins.
Jamie Rollins.
Yep.
She's from Florida.
Your wife.
I'm the luckiest guy ever.
I'm really happy to hear it. I
am. She is amazing.
That's great.
And then, oh my gosh, I have the most amazing business partner. It's like this whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
You're in that law of attraction. You're in that vortex. You're just, you're taking everything in, not resisting. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I'm inspired by you guys. You just, I'm really a newbie to the cannabis industry, to doing anything online.
Mm-hmm.
Total unicorn journey myself, but I mean, I look to you guys as like mentors in a lot of ways, and just putting stuff out there that's we were talking about, the risk that is involved for cannabis nurses to be involved in this volatile a climate overall, but just our medical system where there's, so much resistance to change, to integrating this new science, well, not new science, new old science.
New old science, you're right.
And how, you like personally, you're putting yourself at risk in some ways, your career, because you're not going to be able to apply for certain jobs. You're not going to be able to get access certain types of business support, or, I mean, we're finding out ourselves, we can't use this platform, and we get kicked off of that because we have CBD or hemp or something in our.
Welcome.
I guess tell me a little bit about this. First, starting off the stigma, the most intense aspects of stigma that you both have experienced, and not to dwell on the negative, but just to give people.
I'll start.
Okay.
Yeah, Sherri.
I'll definitely start. There's been a few incidences for me when it comes to stigma. Probably the one was my own personal system of not really understanding the history of the plant and how it works. And so part of my stigma, I was afraid to even come and share with anyone. I didn't want any medical professionals to know at first.
Really?
So how I dealt, because here I am, I'm a nurse.
Right, right.
I'm published. I've worked with pediatrics, geriatrics, multiple settings.
You're thick
I've done research. I am like a holistic integrative nurse. Why couldn't I figure out how to heal myself? So I had some stigma even around that as a nurse. Here I am able to take care of other people, but what a failure I felt not being able to take care of myself. So stigma in that sense, that I didn't want people to know that I was turning to the the devil's lettuce, as people have seen it.
Yeah, I love
right?
that.
And so working
The
through the
devil's
stigma,
lettuce.
this is how I worked through the stigma, which was just kind of amazing, is
Yep.
the cannabis community, the recreational cannabis community were my healers.
Really?
They helped me. I basically went to the dispensary, bought a ton of stuff. I had books, I had, but I'm a real experiential learner.
We were just talking about that. I am too.
Yeah. So what I learned in the community, I would never learn in a book, never learn in a webinar, never learn in a class, never learn in a conference. It was actually being in the community of these healers that are making medicine for their friends, for their families. They say, oh, the dealers, oh, this. It's like, no, they are healers. They're not dealers. They care. They're compassionate.
They're healers.
And they inspired me. He said, Sherri, you have to do this. You have to get out into the community. My mother will listen to you. My father will listen to you, or this one will listen to you because you're a nurse. And so then I took the community education and married it with the science. And so started to study and become involved in the organization, the American Cannabis Nurses Association, the Cannabis Nurses Network, and the different communities. And so, taking all of that together, that was probably my number one stigma, was the stigma I had myself and how to work through that.
What was the point when you came out, or like, was it like, okay, all of a sudden?
Yes, this is great. No, it was over time. It was definitely over time. Well, I founded the company and I was still pretty quiet. I was helping people, but really what it was I was asked to present at Boston College with a couple of my other cannabis nursing colleagues in 2018. In 1988, I graduated from Boston College School of Nursing. In 2018, 30 years later, they were asking, us to present on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis. So when the college that I graduated from, that I got in trouble smoking a J behind the bushes, asked me to come back 30 years later to present on this plant, I was like, wait a minute, I'm either all in or I'm all out. There's no in between. No, right? Same thing with the endocannabinoid system. You're either supporting it or you're not. So I was either all in or all out. And I said, you know what, I'm in. And so that's when I started the podcast, the Green Nurse Radio Show podcast.
Okay. Yep.
Really start sharing those compelling stories.
Getting the stories out. Yep. Yep.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it does. You have to be all in, because you're jumping into some place where there's no coming back from. I mean,
no, it's like once you go down this rabbit hole. Yeah. Once you go down the rabbit hole and you really understand the concept of the endocannabinoid system as being the master regulatory system of your entire body, you can't go back.
You can't.
We have an obligation as health professionals with our morals, our values, ethics, to really, really delve into understanding how this plant works so we can educate patients appropriately so they can make choices that are best for them.
Awesome.
Well said.
Yeah. Mark, do you want to share an experience of stigma? We can move on to my
you know what? I don't think, other than not being able to apply for jobs, I have not had many issues with stigma, because I just don't buy into it. I pretty much just Listen, I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. I know the government's full of shit. Sorry. I just know. Yeah,
I don't have that. Yeah. I think that mine was the addiction issue. I went through the treatment, and you're just so programmed to think that even cannabis is bad, and you're bad for helping yourself, basically. And even if you're using it, you're still like, you're down a level. You're not at the same level.
You know what? I'll take that back, Jill. I had that same experience too, because I still had after my time in AA, I still had a lot of friends that I had cultivated over 15 years, very close friends. They pretty much said, well, no, sorry.
To this day, people still will not accept that piece,
Yep.
Well, that's the beauty of the program. So when you say you're working a program, it's your own personal program. Right? No two people, just like we have an endocannabinoid system, it's the personal program of what is a way of life for you. How are you going to recover? How are you going to live your best life using the tools that you have? We all agree it's not the end all be all, but for a lot of patients that are coming off of drugs and alcohol, it is a wonderful tool.
It's a godsend. A godsend.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what I'd do without it, because I was at a place where I was ready to jump back into something worse, and it kind of picked me up and So, I think one thing that comes up in my head, and in conversations too, is the terminology around using cannabis and like getting high and wasted, getting baked. And I guess my boyfriend, I was sharing with Mark, he's been used cannabis since he was probably like 8. He's just a regular user, just a chill guy. And I can't speak highly enough about him, but he definitely uses that language. It's dope, it's this, it's that. I'm always like, oh, I've got to change the way he's talking about it. I can't have him going around saying those things.
Yeah.
But I just, I stopped worrying about it. And, but I guess, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Do you try to?
I think I do. I try to sort of change the language, but that's the language we've used forever and ever and ever, right?
And and what is wrong with, I guess the concept of getting high to me is so associated with a lot of things that are maybe more physically damaging, like alcohol. Well, is it so bad to feel good? And what does getting high mean? And
so basically, I'm going to pipe in here. Because
go ahead, yeah, please. This is just a
Mark
riff.
Mark and I with the Green Nurse platform came up with, what does it mean to be high?
Oh, you did.
It means to bring hope. H, hope.
Hope.
I, inspiration. G, growth. H, healing. High. This plant has opened up our consciousness.
Yes.
Which first brought me hope when I was sick, suffering, and dying, and wanted to die.
Yeah.
The other thing,
you had no hope.
This plant opened up my mind to consciousness and poured in hope. So then what happened? I'm breathing in this plant, right? Which is breath of spirit. It connected to my spirit, which created inspiration. So I inspired, inspiration in spirit. So then I'm able to look at things from different perspectives, and I'm able to come up with a plan, figure this out. I have this hope, I have this inspiration. Now it's time for me to grow, right? And growing, cannabis has allowed me to eliminate the box that says I must think outside the box. So hope, inspiration,
there is no box.
Growth.
There's no box, Jill. No box, Sherri.
No box.
No.
We're not in the Truman Show. Nope.
And then the healing, the H, the healing takes place as I allow myself to experience hope, as I allow myself to be inspired, as I allow myself to grow. And healing is not necessarily the absence of illness or disease, but it's doing the best you can with what you have right here, right now,
where you are.
That's great. Yeah, I think that one thing that is disturbing to me is when you go to get the way that we haven't caught up with our laws, even in Massachusetts. Sherri, going to get my card, I went through the talk with the person, the doctor, I think it might have been a nurse practitioner. And one thing she said at the end is, make sure you don't, after you use cannabis, don't drive for 6 hours. And I'm smiling, nod, yeah, of course not. But I mean, that to me, that's like, I'm blind because I would never be able to drive. I mean, I wouldn't say I was altered in any way that would make it unsafe, but even if I'm using CBD or so, I mean, I guess stuff like that bugs me a lot because we're saying these things that are enforcing old stereotypes and old science in some ways, but that's right inside the cannabis industry. So, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Anything?
Is this about like when you're giving instructions to patients to use the plant?
Right. Well, when you're in those, this was my particular experience. I don't know, what's done in other settings where you're getting your card and, they're going through
information.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. So,
now, I was told that on all three the times I've gotten my card, I was told don't drive, and I was like, okay.
Well,
I know
can I
what
tell
they
you
mean.
what it is? It's legal risk reduction. So in other words, I'm not going to liability covering their ass.
But here's the thing, Sherri. How many medications that you get, pharmaceutical medications, say, hey, don't operate any heavy machinery until you figure out if you're going to be all messed up. Basically is what it says on the side of the label, right? But your doctor never says that to you in your appointment.
That's a good point.
Oh, I'm going to give you benzodiazepines. By the way, you probably shouldn't drive, until you figure out how messed up this is going to make you, because it will make you messed up. But in the cannabis industry, whoop, look out.
Yeah.
It's that devil's lettuce, like you said.
Right.
And I think it's still a part of the stigma. I think it's still a part of the stigma where they have to tell you, boy, 6 hours, you better not.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
We won't even talk about the studies that show that there's less impairment than others.
Yeah. I've kind of thought that just because of what my own personal experience. Now, I know when I first started using cannabis, I definitely it was not a good idea to drive, especially
Me too.
when I had THC.
Yep.
But as time goes on and don't drive altered, here I am outing myself.
All right. Well, so basically, here's the bottom line. Do I use cannabis and drive? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
Am I impaired? The answer is no. I would not drive impaired. I know when I'm impaired and I know when I'm not impaired, and I know when I'm medicated appropriately. Do I enjoy cannabis recreationally? Absolutely. But do I drive when I'm having a recreational experience? No, I don't.
Yeah.
I understand the endocannabinoid system. I understand the safe utilization of cannabinoids. And basically, there are 3 ways to use this plant: medically, recreationally, and irresponsibly. And it all has to do with the consciousness that you have when you go to consume it.
That's right. Yep, it
is.
is.
It's basically, knowledge is power. And basically, as nurses, as the green nurses, we even teach people how to have a safe recreational experience, because all we're doing is teaching them about their body and how it may respond to different cannabinoids.
That's great.
So they can have that experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that would be what it comes down to. It's such an individual thing with driving and knowing your own body. Yeah, I will make decisions like, okay, I can't go do that because I'm not in a place where I can drive. And I guess, I think of people looking at the outside in, well, that's, you're really addicted, or you're.
Well, then there's the backstory too. It's replaced 18 pharmaceuticals of mine.
Right. I know. And
right.
Mine
so,
too.
and I don't.
But...
And because my endocannabinoid system is more regulated using cannabinoids and other health and wellness tools, I don't need as much cannabis as I used to need.
Yes.
So that's the interesting thing that people need to understand.
It healed you.
It healed me.
You.
Yes. The ongoing healing journey.
Guys are just hitting all the high notes here. So med and rec, do you see that there needs to be a divide, buy into that? Like, are people, well, like what you said, I think it's perfect. People get off the elevator wherever they are, wherever they start using.
Yeah. The thing is, I think for financial purposes, for medical patients, I like the idea that that they have things set up for those that have, financial problems, and people that are on disability, people that have affordability issues, and that patients are able to get their medicine. Fixed incomes. People that are actually able to get their medicine, without having to pay taxes.
Right.
So
that's a good point.
And also too, because of the laws when it comes to adult use cannabis programs, oftentimes the amount of milligrams and the amount that you can get while you shop is very different than the medical patient. So the medical patient can purchase more than the adult use patient can. So if someone, if someone's using it as medicine and they have to go by the, if they make the adult use laws all the same and get rid of the medical program, I truly think that would be detrimental to those medical patients that do need higher doses.
That's a good point. Yeah, I know even like the edibles in the dispensaries, if you're going to one where there's rec, you're going to get a limited dosage of.
But that's not to say too, when medical patients are starting off, because there's a lot of people that we've taken care of in the community that actually start off going to adult use dispensary to even try it to see if it helps their symptoms. And then if it helps their symptoms, then what they do is they get the medical card so they can go have more choices, save some money.
Yeah.
So
and many times they'll do a consultation because they say, you know what, maybe I can fine tune this, that it'll be even more effective.
Yes.
Because now they're like, okay, the door's open. I buy into it. It worked a little bit. Now, can we make it work even better?
Yeah. And I see you guys coming in a lot of ways, right at that point where people might know a little bit, and I will refer people to you all the time. I mean, they know a little bit, but they don't understand the medical aspect, and they might do better with like a different mix of THC, CBD, or whatever. So there's a lot you can do once you open your mind to it and embrace the science. And
once the door's open, I think there are a lot of people, Jill, whose skepticism is starting to wane, and they're more open to that type of thing. I used to do, before the pandemic, I did a lot of speaking events in residential and assisted living facilities. So the group that I was speaking to were between the ages of 65 and 90. And man, they had some of the best questions, and they
Mm-hmm.
all wanted to know about it, right? They
Huh.
all wanted to know how they could utilize it. And you know, the issue is, of course, you know, they can't get out to the dispensaries. So then you got to go through, you got to find a caregiver. And then, you know, and some facilities aren't amenable to having cannabis. So there's,
Right.
you know,
So
Right.
that's too, in Massachusetts, they're working on expanding the caregiver program.
Really?
And actually, the other thing that we're working on, because the Green Nurse Group is a whole health nursing agency, is the institutional caregiver program. So what we would love to see as nurses is to be able to shop on our patients' behalf, act as brokers,
Mhm.
and have a delivery. You know, so institutional caregiver program. So
no
it's,
reason
you know,
that shouldn't happen.
yeah, exactly. And so when we have the group of nurses, I mean, we are true and blue registered nurses that do home care, you know,
Absolutely.
and have expertise across the board from pediatrics to geriatrics.
Yep.
And the nursing community is so interested in really incorporating cannabis nursing into their current practice. So I just see this as being a win-win all around, you know, for multiple home care agencies.
Absolutely. You know? I would love to see that. I know my oldest daughter's in a group home, and she would be benefit from cannabis probably as much or more than anyone I know. And she can't use it. She can't use it. And that's really
prohibited.
Really hard for me. So
it's a shame. It's just a shame.
It's a shame.
You know, I mean, how cool would it be to, you know, to have either a nurse come to the facility or a nurse do a virtual consultation, help the patients to choose and decide what products they want, and then to have a medical delivery service with nurses actually being there to accommodate these patients. You know, then you could actually add in to the delivery services home health care, you know, home health aid or a caregiver, you know, even just people to do things around the home, a hairdresser to come do some ladies. You know, you just add in all of these additional services, massage therapy, you know, in conjunction with cannabis delivery for medical patients. I mean, it's just a brilliant concept that includes multiple different modalities that all support and nourish the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting chills listening to that, because I think that then you're reaching the people that need it. And I don't want to say the most, because everybody needs it.
Everybody
in today's world.
Yeah.
All our endocannabinoid systems are probably on the fritz.
It's a huge adaptogen. Huge. It helps us to adapt to so many different stressful situations in our lives, so we can, you know, continue on our journey to do the best we can, you know, and live our best life.
Right.
Especially right now in light of COVID. And then, you know, I'll wrap it up. I want you guys to tell me about your platform and what you're expanding into. In light of COVID, I think that this opens a window too, especially where people can't go anywhere. If you're able to go into settings where people are isolated and unable to get the kind of, and offer cannabis, whoa, that would be pretty great. Thanks for doing this kind of off the cuff discussion.
Love it.
Yeah, it was fun. But I want you to tell me about what is going on. I know you covered it more, but now we've talked to you both a little more. Tell me what your platform is and what your vision is for both you guys.
All right. So we basically, you know, we're taking the Green Nurse. The reason why we chose the Green Nurse is because the Green Nurse represents an entire concept, a whole philosophy of how we care for our bodies, starting with nourishing the endocannabinoid system. So we see it as a global community of practitioners, of healers, offering approved and vetted services and products. So kind of like a marketplace.
So they could apply to your platform to be a part.
Well, that's going to be one part of it.
Okay.
And the other part of it is an educational platform. So we're going to have a whole community, not only for education, but for like teaching people how to do mentoring. That's it. Nurse mentoring.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So we're going to have
it goes back to that. We
programs.
talked about that, Sherri. Yeah, Sherri, Jill and I talked about, you know, the importance, you know, if she asked me, you know, for somebody who's getting into this world, the Green Nurse world, what would be the best thing?
Mentor.
Community. Be a part of a community. Right? That mentoring that you were just talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to do with like new nurses and new people that are coming in, not even just nurses, but medical professionals. I was talking to a doctor
across
of physical
the board.
therapy. Yeah, a doctor of physical therapy in Florida is coming on the Green Nurse platform. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, she, we talked to her and she learned about the endocannabinoid system, and she wants to incorporate this education into her practice because she truly sees the value. So she's going to become a part of the green nurse community and, get the education. And then, if she wants to incorporate, we have CBD companies that we're affiliated with, and we're coming out with our own product line, but, being able to teach them how to choose and pick different products to incorporate into their practice. We truly believe that there's something for everyone there. So we want to incorporate multiple lines of products into our global community, because there is something for everyone. Nurses are not good, and medical professionals want the best for their patients. And there is a product for everyone that will help them.
And it's not just cannabis, Jill. It's all modalities that support a healthy endocannabinoid system, whether it's exercise, nutrition, meditation. All of those things help to upregulate the endocannabinoid system. So utilizing all of those different things, my God, you might end up just getting married in 30 days. You'd never know.
And so
crazier things have happened.
So we're creating that community because we want people. We're creating that community. We're doing it together. We're bringing in multiple disciplines. The whole thing. Total healthcare, THC. It's about the bio, psycho, social, spiritual aspects of healing, and having all of those tools accessible and vetted by 2 green nurses. No, by vetted by the entire nursing community. I hate to say just 2 green nurses, because there's a lot of us and we all care.
Yes.
So you guys will kind of look at the person or the whatever they're trying to, and make sure that they're at the level that they need to be at that point to
especially on the product side of things. We'll really be vetting the companies very, very closely. They'll be green nurse approved.
Stamp of approval.
Really?
It's going to kind of be like, how they have the American Dental Association, Colgate's got that stamp. Very similar.
ADA.
Oh, we need that.
GNG.
Boom. Just like that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, like you said about a product for everyone, that's another misunderstanding people have. They think that there's a variety of products under the umbrella of cannabis and CBD and cannabinoids. So, and like you said,
the big teaching factor around that is that people need to understand is their cannabinoid requirements change over time. As they change
significantly.
Yep. So what worked for you at age 20 is going to be different than what you need at age 50.
Or at age 21. You just never know.
And that speaks to why pharmaceuticals are difficult in that area, because they're stagnant. You can't really adjust them as simply, or
it's either a yes or a no.
All right. Yep. Well, that's about it, guys.
All right.
Thank you for coming on and hanging out with me. And this will be.
It's really an honor.
Thank you so much.
Working with you.
It is an honor, Jill. Thank you so much.
My honor.
Mark, thank you. Yes. Jill, thank you. Make it a great day, everyone. And
the best day ever.
Absolutely fucking amazing.
Yes.
Live your best
that's
life.
Right. You are. I am.
Yes. Thank you. See you guys.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye. And that is a wrap, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to TSC Talks with Mark Worcester and Sherri Tutkus, talking about what is a green nurse, what is a male green nurse. Stay tuned for more on the podcast. Check out our website, tsctalks.com. And if you want to buy some incredible, brilliantly formulated products by Mike Robinson, check out thesourcecannabinoids.com. And keep on keeping on. Thanks again, Mark and Sherri.